Want to get to a story that has not really been talked an awful lot about, and beyond immigration in general, which we've talked about a lot. The idea that you could come here, right, as an immigrant, do everything you have to do, get your papers, do what you have right, and then when you have to at some point stay here, make that decision to stay here, renew your work permit, that's apparently the fly in the ointment. We're just finding out about this now, so we wanted to find out more. Neil Drabkin's an immigration lawyer, political commentator, former chief of staff in the Harper government. So Neil, with respect to this, I would have thought that you clear that initial hurdle when you come here, you do what you have to do, you get your paperwork, you're good to go. Why is it not like that?
Well, because sometimes the government is very short-sighted. They don't recognize that you may want to become a permanent resident after this lengthy process, and they will be very bureaucratic. If your permit expires before you become a permanent resident, they will sometimes ask you to leave the country and apply from outside, even if you've already established your life here, which for a government that prides itself on being humanitarian when it comes to immigration is at cross purposes. So they should be looking at what makes sense to the person who's applying, the members of their family, their work situation, and at the end of the day, what Canada needs. You know, we need manpower here, so we shouldn't be sending people who are duly employed away from this country.
Okay, I would, look, I understand, there are maybe some political allegiances here, Neil, with respect to how this government is handling it vis-a-vis other governments.
But I don't think it's unique to this government.
Right, so that was my question. Is it, or have we always just not done this the way it should be done to make things easier?
Immigration has always been a challenge to the governments, in this case Quebec, and also the federal government. But we have to always be attempting to streamline the process and be adding resources to make sure that people come here in a timely manner. You know, we invested hundreds of millions of dollars at Roxham Road for people who are trying to enter the country illegally. That's now closed down. So we would like to think that all the resources that were dedicated to that process are now being sent around the world to our missions abroad so that people can be processed in a more timely fashion and get here, occupy jobs that we need them to occupy, and build lives for themselves and contribute to Canada. You know, Canada was built by immigrants who will continue to be built by immigrants well into this century, and so we have to recognize that and make sure that we handle this properly.
I'm sorry, I kept cutting off. I just wanted to follow up because I remember when we first talked about this is going back a year or two, still post-pandemic, right? There was a lot made of the fact that we simply didn't have enough people in these ministries to handle the volume of applications. Is that still the case?
That is still the case. You know, people are waiting abroad for sometimes years to come to this country, depending upon the category they're in. The work permit holders ultimately who will work in this country are waiting too long to get here. Permanent residents who are trying to bring money to this country or trying to be reunited with their family members can wait years as well. And that is because there are a lack of resources in these embassies, in these consulates abroad. And the government has to invest in that. Whether it's a conservative or a liberal government, there's no difference. There has to be an investment in the immigration process if we're going to deem immigration to be a priority.
I want to sort of make this specific because we're talking about this in general terms, but this one article in La Presse highlights a family, a couple with 3 children who've been here for 2 years. Their kids are aged 6 to 16. They all speak French perfectly. They're in the school system, and something has gone wrong, and I'm not going to get into the complexities of it, but basically he had citizenship, and then his permits have not been renewed, so his whole family is being told they have to leave by December. This is a family that's built a life for themselves in LaSalle. I know it's not just one family, but how common is this problem? How many people who have built whole lives for themselves here, Neil, are being forced to leave over just basic bureaucracy?
There are too many to count, and that is unacceptable. It's simply unacceptable. You know, these decisions are often being made by bureaucrats who are a little bit short-sighted in terms of what our overall objectives are here in Canada, that is to have a workforce. And they're sometimes a little bit too quick to press the exit button when they should be welcoming and facilitating the entry of these people into the country, or allowing them to remain here if they're duly employed, making a contribution. And so, I read that article too, and I'm disturbed by the fact that a lot of these people try to get through the immigration phone numbers and don't have success in that regard. I would commend those who are having difficulties, forget about that number. Call your Liberal member of Parliament. Most on the island of Montreal, they're mostly Liberal members of Parliament, and ask them to intervene. That is their job, and sometimes they can get through the red tape.
I'm wondering, maybe it's a fair question or not, are things getting, again, you have to reference everything to the pandemic because we know things began to fall apart then. Are things getting, I know stories like this are there, are things getting better or staying the same, Neil?
I would think things are getting worse. The backlogs I'm hearing about are longer than they have been. And, they post the standards on the website, immigration does, but often they're well beyond the standards. And that's not fair to those who are applying. There's an expectation that a permit will be issued within a year, within 2 years, and then people end up waiting 3 and 4 years. So, they have to stick to their guns in that regard. And if there's a lack of resources, which there clearly is, then more people have to be hired and trained. That certainly is the commitment of the new immigration minister, Mr. Miller, who is actually a member of Parliament here in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And they have to make that a priority. There seems to be money to spend on everything except on immigration. And it's time to start spending money in the right places. Immigration is certainly one of them.
Neil, it's sounding to me like it needs a complete and total overhaul. It should not be this complex. People who, want to be taxpayers, working Canadians should be allowed to stay here. Is that possible? Like, am I dreaming in Technicolor? Or should there be a whole complete overhaul of this fundamentally flawed system?
What if you did? What if you chose to stay? Do you risk getting caught and then being basically thrown out of the country, never being able to come back?
Well, there are a large number of people who are underground in the country, tens of thousands.
We don't know who
that's
they are.
One of our big problems, is that often people don't leave when they get a notification of this nature, or they're failed refugees and they don't go back to their country. And we have a very difficult time policing that, so they're part of the underground economy. And hopefully one day they'll surface and apply and regularize their status. And the government's talked about doing that as well. I don't think that should be a reward, mind you, but there are a large number of people. People should follow the rules. They should apply. But there's an expectation they should be able to have that they'll be processed in a timely manner. You know what people end up doing? They get fed up and they start applying elsewhere, places like Australia, and they get our best talent. They get the talent that should be destined to this country to help build a stronger economy. They go to other countries because no matter who you are, you could be wanting to bring millions of dollars into this country, and you'll be put into a line, and you'll wait for years. And who can plan their lives in that kind of way? So the government has to put their money where their mouth is, send the resources to where they're needed, and start bringing more immigrants into this country who want to make a contribution.
Hear, hear.
Neil Drabkin, immigration lawyer. Neil, thank you so much. We always appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Take good care.
Thanks, Neil.
Kind of an awful situation,
It's
isn't it, when you stop and think about it?
ridiculous.
And the fact that and I said, is it getting better? Same. No, it's getting worse.
Well, and you just think that's just so un-Canadian. It just feels so wrong.
And then we didn't have time to ask them this. Someone texting in saying, if you sponsor a nanny, for example, they live here and they want to then apply to, for permanent residence, they force them to outside of Quebec. So our nanny, who our kids love and who loves our city and our family, who is learning French, needs to move to Toronto or Edmonton to apply, but they obviously don't come back. So we lose an amazing nanny and are forced to sponsor someone else. Now that's Quebec specific, but still, that idea, so much of this just makes no sense at all.
Well, and this beautiful family in LaSalle, he's a citizen. He's been granted citizenship, and his wife can't get the visa that she needs, and their 3 kids. Really? They've been living here. They speak French.
I get it.